Okay, welcome English 10 students. This is Mrs. Snyder here. Just wanted to go over your Module 8 essay. I think that this is a very sophisticated essay that I'm asking you to write, and I realize I think you need a little bit more support. So by the time you get to Module 8, you have already read Isabel Allende's story called Of Clay We Are Made. And that is a short story that she wrote based on real events. So it's based on a true story, but she created a short story. And we know that short stories are fiction. So keeping in mind the elements of fiction that we've studied, fiction has characters that are made up. It has dialogue that's made up, and it has plot that is decided on by the author on how to sequence the events of the story. So keep that in mind that you read Isabel Allende's story Of Clay We Are Made, and it was a short story that she wrote based on true events. Now, before you write your Module 8 essay, you are going to read another piece on pages 272 through 277 of your textbook. You can see it right here. I've written it out for you here on Module 8. And you're going to read a piece called The Man in the Water, which is written by Roger Rosenblatt, who's a journalist. And he wrote a personal essay describing something that really occurred. And so here's what you need to think of before you write this essay. You need to think back to the short story Of Clay We Are Made, and then you're going to think about the personal essay that you'll read, The Man in the Water. And I want you to consider author's purpose. In other words, why would Isabel Allende decide to take the real events she knows about and write about them in the form or the genre of a short story? And think about what short stories have. And then think about Roger Rosenblatt's experience, which you'll have read about, and ask yourself, why did he decide to write it as a personal essay rather than a short story? And so we're looking at author's purpose. What does a short story have that a personal essay doesn't have? And what does a personal essay have that a short story doesn't have? And ask yourself, why would each author choose either genre to tell their story? All right. And if we go down here to where it says writing a compare-contrast essay, it lets you know that on page 283, there is a whole write-up there on how to write a compare and contrast essay. So you're going to need to read that. You can take some notes and or reread as necessary to make sure you can write a really quality essay. And then you're going to write your essay. It tells you right down here. The point of this essay is to compare the two pieces in terms of how genre, short story versus personal essay, relates to the author's purpose, and also to identify and demonstrate the theme of both pieces while you compare and contrast them. On page 283, at the bottom right, there is a little chart that will really help you with this particular essay and how to write it, and I'm going to go over a few more strategies with you. I also just want to remind you that this is an MLA formatted essay, which means the entire essay should be double-spaced. It also means that you should have the 4-line MLA heading in the upper left-hand corner of just the first page. And remember to look up the specific MLA formatted date. And then remember that on all pages in the upper right-hand corner, there's a header. And the header has your last name and a space and a page number on every single page. Okay? Then you'll have centered, you'll have your original title, and then you'll have your double-spaced essay. Your essay should be minimum 5 paragraphs or about 5 paragraphs. And think about each paragraph having anywhere from 8 to 10 sentences roughly as a guideline for you to follow. Okay, so hopefully this is then going to help you. Yay, we're still recording. Okay. I have another document here that I wanted to make sure I went over with you. So as you get ready to write your essay, here's what I want you to think about. And so I'm just going to kind of read this with you, and that way you'll have this available to you. Brainstorm the elements of a short story and also brainstorm the elements of a personal essay. Think about how a short story differs from a personal essay, and think about the author's purpose, or why an author would choose one genre over another in order to communicate their story. Ask yourself, why did Isabel Allende choose to write her piece as a short story, and why did Roger Rosenblatt decide to write his piece as a personal essay? Writing down the answers to these questions will assist you in writing your Module 8 compare and contrast essay. Remember, you will need to include specific examples and quotes from each text as you compare and contrast them. The specific examples will help explain what you are trying to communicate regarding both pieces of literature. So keep that in mind. So I've also come up with a little summary of kind of what should go into each paragraph. So paragraph 1 is your introduction. You need to have a hook. So start off with something that grabs the reader's attention, not starting off by saying, in this essay, I'm going to compare and contrast. Okay? Start off with something that grabs our attention. Maybe it's a little bit of information about the topic of both of these pieces, or what they have in common, or just something interesting about them. One thing really important to remember, anytime you write an essay that is a literary analysis essay, you need to introduce the stories by giving the titles and the author's names. So introduce the two stories with the titles and author's names, correctly capitalized and punctuated, and give a little bit of summary about the similarities between the two stories. So maybe a little bit of summary there. That way, in case someone's reading your essay and they haven't read the short story and the personal essay, they'll have an idea of what's going on and they're still able to understand your essay. Remember, because these are both short pieces, a short story and a short personal essay, the way to correctly punctuate them is with quotation marks, and you'll capitalize every word in the title's name and also in the author's name. And then you're going to have a thesis statement where you write a sentence. The very last sentence to your first paragraph should be a sentence that explains that there are similarities and differences between the two genres, the author's purpose, and the theme of both of these pieces. Okay, so that's your first paragraph. You're kind of giving your reader background of what the essay is going to be about, and also giving us a thesis statement to focus on that's going to focus the entire essay by saying there are similarities and differences between these two pieces in terms of genre, author's purpose, and theme. Okay, that's actually what your thesis statement can say. When you get to the next body paragraph, paragraph 2 is going to be 5 to 8 or 8 to 10 sentences explaining how the genre chosen by the author to tell their story relates to the author's purpose for telling or writing that story. Write about that first for one story and then for the other, and be sure to include examples from the stories with explanations as to why those examples are significant. Then you'll move on to the next body paragraph. Again, you're going to write 5 to 8 sentences explaining the theme of each piece, and give some examples that demonstrate or show that theme. And then the next body paragraph, write 5 to 8 sentences explaining how the elements of each story's genre support the theme for each story. And again, be sure to give examples with that explanation. Your 5th paragraph will be your conclusion. Again, 5 to 8 sentences or up to 10 sentences that summarize your 3 main points and sort of bring your essay to a close. I hope that helps give your essay some structure, and please reach out to me if you need any help as you work on this essay. Good luck.